Good morning, everyone. Today we would like to explain about critical theory through Karl Marx's thought. Our member is Verli, Adhela, Dyah, Anita, Gabriella, Feri, Cahya, Urathul, Khairani, and Nasywa Nurjadwa. Our table of content is first critical theory explanation and history, the history of Frankfurt School, the history of Karl Marx, Marxism theory, the relation between Marxism and critical theory, and the last is the real-life implementation. First is critical theory explanation and history. Critical theory is a social theory oriented toward critiquing and changing society as a whole. It differs from traditional theory, which focus only on understanding or explaining society. While critical theory is often thought of narrowly as referring to the Frankfurt School that began with Horkheimer and Adorno and stretches to Marcuse and Habermas. Any philosophical approach with similar practical aims could be called a critical theory, including feminism, critical race theory, and some form of post-colonial criticism. The history. Some of the most prominent figures of the first generation of critical theory were Mark Horkheimer. Since the 1970s, a second generation began with Jürgen Habermas, who among other merits contributed to the opening of a dialogue between so-called continental and analytic tradition. In this work, Horkheimer asserted that a critical theory must do two important things. It must account for society within historical context, and it should seek to offer a robust and holistic critique by incorporating insight from all social science. Second is the history of Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School was a group of scholars affiliated with Frankfurt's AIM Institute for Social Research that used Marxism to a radical interdisciplinary social theory. It was originally located at the Institute for Social Research, or Institute for Social Science. The Frankfurt School began as a bequest from a millionaire, but the school real work arose with the founder realization of the inadequacies of Marx's thought. Beginning in the 20s, both Horkheimer and Adorno sought to rethink Marxism by returning to its roots in German philosophy. At the most general level, the Frankfurt School was an effort to develop this dimension, especially by distinguishing traditional, instrumental, and critical or self-reflective form of rationality. The story of Karl Marx. Karl Marx was born on 5th May 1818 in Trier, Germany. Died in 14 March 1883 in London, England. Learning about law and philosophy at University of Berlin. First introduced to philosophy by Professor G.W.F. Hegel as his lecturer, and he joined a group named the Young Hegelians. Marx became revolutionary. After he finished his college, he started to write for the liberal democratic newspaper. At his work in 1842, he became the paper editor, but because of his paper was too radical, it got banned by the Prussian government. In 1847, Marx collaborated with Emil Friedrich Engels, his fellow German, to write a draft of their book that is the Communist Manifesto. In London 1849, Marx studied and observed the condition of workers. Therefore, he read his book entitled Das Kapital in 1867 as critique of the capitalist system work.
Alright, now we're going to discuss about Marxism theory. Marx focused on communism ideology, the working class struggle, labor surplus values, and dialectical materialism. But today, we're only gonna focus and discuss about communism ideology. Here are the definition of capitalism, socialism, and communism. According to Marxism theory, capitalism is an economic system in which private own and control property in accord with their interest, while socialism is a population who collectively owns and controls the means of production and distributes the end result proportionally. And the successful socialist society would morph into communism, which is the creation of a society where all are equal and all things are owned in common for everyone. Now, from an equal society. There are two distinct groups in society. The first one is the factory owner or the bourgeoisie, and the second is the working class or the proletariat. In each period of time, they were always in conflict because of the unequal society. Marx seeks not only to understand the world but to change it through the struggle for power between different classes. The proletariat are defined by the fact that they don't own the means of production, that is, the materials you need to use in order to labor and produce goods, while the bourgeoisie are defined by the fact that they do own the factories that are made in them and control all the means of production. Marx argued if the proletariat lack of access to the means of production, then they only have one thing they can sell, their labor. It is true they would be paid if they sell their labor, however, Marx also argued that they are being paid less than the worth of what they produce, so it is clear, if they don't want to sell their labor, they starve. So, because of this bumpy case, Marx used to have a shot at building up communist countries in this world to overcome the unequal society. He started his struggle to undertake the capitalism by communism ideology. Indeed, Marx did succeed in implementing the ideology of communism in several countries, but he was failed to make a communist world. Those countries who embrace communism ideology are China, Union Soviet, Vietnam, Cuba, North Korea, or etc. However, Marx cannot be completely said to be successful because there is still social inequality within these countries. Its communism even no longer stands for those countries and is being eliminated, for instance, Russia. Russia used to embrace communism, but today Russia is no longer considered a communist country. Next topic will be presented by our next presenter.
5. The relation between Marxism and critical theory. Marx's critique of the Trinity formula involves a rupture with the world of appearances and conceptualization of class as a group of people or a structure. As a participant in a capitalist market economy, we tend to think of capitalism economic relation as justified as the way things should be. This way of thinking, according to Marx, is nothing more than ideology. Marx argues that people should see capitalism for what it is. They must see the ways in which they are alienated, powerless, and exploited before they try to free themselves from it, as a requirement to make a change, reform, or even revolution. The critical theories developed by Marx about society, economics, and politics are understood as Marxism. Furthermore, the premises of Marxist, Freudian, and Hegelian idealist philosophy motivated the Frankfurt School perspective of critical investigation. Frankfurt School is known as critical theory, which includes Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, Jürgen Habermas, Leo Lowenthal, and Friedrich Pollock. The works of the Frankfurt School are understood in the context of the intellectual and practical objectives of critical theory. On the other hand, critical theory as described by Crossman in 2019 can be traced to Marx's critiques of the economy and society. It is based on Marx's theoretical explanation of the link between the economic base and the ideology superstructure, and it examines how power and domination operate. Fuchs in 2005 states that critical theory is a critique of domination and exploitation. Today, critical theory can be found in a variety of feminist theories and methods to social science research, as well as critical racial theory, cultural theory, gender and queer theory, also media theory and media studies. 6. The real-life implementations. For Karl Marx, the essence of the capitalist system is the multiplication of capital. With money, the capitalists buy labor and production machines to produce commodities. After the commodity is produced, the capitalists sell it again for more money. The excess profit taken by the capitalists from the workers is basically an act of theft of the rights of the workers, which Karl Marx called an act of exploitation. For example, the exploitation of natural resources in Papua. Exploitation was carried out by a company from Freeport, which is an American company in collaboration with the government since the Orde era. The reason why Freeport could take over the natural resources in Papua is because Indonesia did not have enough capital to process it. As a great country that has much capital, America successfully took control of gold mines. As a country that owns the gold mines, Indonesia only had small stock. This is an ocular proof of exploitation and dark side of capitalism, which those who have capital or exploiters will take control on everything under the misery of the exploited. The principle of socialism that realizes equality in real terms abolishes individual ownership, and regulates production and distribution to the state cause economic growth to be low because it is more concerned with development than equity. Thus, infrastructure development is low, the limitation of individuals to carry out business activities are limited by the government. All streams of socialism, including communism, trying to achieve real equality. However, real equality is not possible. The different character of human nature in terms of the level of fulfillment of the needs is natural. Humans will use their wealth to produce and get more profits. This effort will fail and otherwise will create the inequality. North Korea is one of the countries that implements a socialist economic system that causes 10 million people in North Korea to experience limited food, and more than 43% of the population is malnourished. This happens because North Korea does not have a stock exchange as a capital market, and North Korea's only foreign trading partner is China. The business in North Korea mostly are dominated by brokers of any deals between Chinese and Korean companies.